All right. Well, hello, everyone. For today's Z-Brief, I have a special guest joining me today to discuss a documentary about the life of photographer Robert Mapplethorpe from his rise in the 70s to his death in 1989. But we're not really hyping just a movie, which will be available for people to screen via a variety of different platforms. We're actually really hyping the fact that Wednesday, March 10th, Emilie's got some special guests and filmmakers who are going to be talking about the Mapplethorpe doc. Now, Emilie Upczak is an independent filmmaker and instructor here at the Department of Cinema Studies and Moving Image Arts here in Boulder, Colorado. She holds a BA in Comparative Religious Studies from CU, an MFA in film from Vermont College of Fine Arts, and she's a Rotterdam Producers Lab alumni and Andy Warhol Foundation grant recipient, and has been a juror for Slamdance and Denver Film Festivals. Now, I know, Emilie, you're originally from Boulder. You've also spent some years developing and doing your practice while living in Trinidad and Tobago. I see that you've also had video installations at various prestigious galleries and festivals from Houston to Brooklyn to France. Your short films have played everywhere, and you've got a debut narrative feature, Moving Parts, available via the film's distributor IndiePix on Amazon. So you've got that, you've got all that sort of background, and of course, I mean, that means that you're probably overlapping with a lot of filmmakers out there, and I think that's how you get these connections. And so do you want to just dive right into it? Like, what are your connections to Mapplethorpe? What do people have to look forward to on Wednesday, March 10th?
Well, on Wednesday, March 10th, thank you, Pablo, for that introduction. We are bringing through the Rosa Visiting Artist Endowment Nancy Schreiber ASC. So Nancy is a cinematographer who's a part of the American Association of Cinematographers, and she was actually the fourth woman to be inducted into the society. And 2 or 3 years ago, she actually won the President's Award there. So Nancy shot my first narrative feature film, Moving Parts. So that is my 3 degrees of separation to Mapplethorpe. And actually, when we were doing color correction in New York, she was preparing to shoot Mapplethorpe. So, and we were able to actually do the color for Moving Parts at Technicolor, in part because Technicolor wanted the Mapplethorpe film to color, because it was being shot in 16 millimeter. And it is actually a narrative biopic with Matt Smith. So the filmmaker, Andi Timonor, she historically has been a documentarian and has mostly made documentaries, but she decided to make this foray into the narrative form with Mapplethorpe. And I think I personally, having seen the film, thought she did an excellent job of telling his story. The film does span from the age of 21 to his death. So she's trying to cover a lot. And I know that the production, it was an independent film, so the budget wasn't huge. And what they managed to do shooting on film with some major stars in New York City is kind of incredible. But along with Nancy, we will also be speaking with, on the 10th, Wednesday the 10th at 7:30, Jonah Markowitz, who's the production designer. And Jonah is actually originally from Boulder. His family is still here in Boulder, the Markowitz family. And he has worked on a number of films and is currently on a TV HBO series in LA. But I think that will be particularly interesting to see kind of the challenges of recreating this time period. It was a period piece, so they're trying to recreate the 70s in New York, and trying to represent a visual artist, a photographer's vision and his lifestyle. So I know from the brief talks that I've had with Jonah, he interviewed people at the Mapplethorpe Foundation and had to do a lot of research actually to develop the color palette and really what the sort of production design would be for the film. And to have this conversation between the cinematographer and the production designer is really an invaluable thing to understand how closely related those two roles are on a film set and how important, how heavily they lean on one another. So I'm excited for Nancy and Jonah to come and speak with us. And then, as you mentioned, the film will be playing, it is playing on Canopy, both at the CU Boulder Canopy site as well as the Boulder Community Library Canopy site. So we're asking people to watch the film in advance of the talk, and it is open to the public, so both for university students and for the general public.
That's great. And I'd like to just a little reminder to any IFS customers or viewers who are watching this. We actually brought out Andi. How do you say her last name? Is it
Timonor?
Timonor? Because she directed the documentary Dig about the Dandy Warhols and the Brian Jonestown massacre. But we had her out with We Live in Public, which was her documentary from 2009, which is a fantastic documentary. It is really prescient about surveillance, people who allow constant surveillance and what it does to their psyche. And I just saw, this was sort of interesting, that it is currently in production as a feature, and it's going to be directed by Ben Stiller.
Oh, really? That is so interesting, because that film was a precursor to really what we're experiencing today, this like loss of privacy and this willing loss of privacy.
Sure.
Basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very interesting, almost Lord of the Flies-esque documentary, how that this experiment didn't go as well as the person who was attempting to make it happen was hoping. But one point on the Canopy version is that it's actually the director's cut. So there's two cuts of the Mapplethorpe film. One is by Samuel Goldwyn, and then the other is the director's cut. And it's basically mostly available, I believe, on educational distribution platforms. So that's the version that I think Andi's most happy with.
Well, that's good to know. And to reiterate, the conversation that you're going to be having on Wednesday, March 10th, what time is it at? And because it's a live event, you're encouraging people to tune in live so that they can toss in questions and chat, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So we'll be taking questions and comments from the public. It's at 7:30 on Wednesday, March 10th. And we will be making links available via YouTube, Facebook, and the Cine listserv as well for people to tune in.
Great. Thanks so much for coming on early to give this a plug. And, I look forward to seeing how it all goes on Wednesday, March 10th. And in the meantime, people, do your homework, watch Mapplethorpe. And there's, it's Andi Timoner is a fascinating director. So, and as you mentioned, they really had quite a few things to work around, and recreating New York in the 70s is it can't be easy. So it should be a fascinating dive into a very specific slice of the art scene at that time. Great, Emilie, thanks so much for joining. Yeah.
Thank you, Pablo. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 10th.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Ciao.